Hi everyone, welcome to another video. This time we're going to be talking about the economic impact from globalization. So the first thing that we really need to focus on is international trade. What is international trade? International trade involves the businesses and excuse me, and the consumers in different countries that are trading with one another. And so when you think about trade, you think about America trading with China, trading with Germany, trading with all these different countries all around the world. And this is something that's done a lot by a lot of different countries and businesses in order to cut costs and get resources and materials and goods that they can't normally get in their own countries. Who oversees this process? Governments typically do because they want to make sure that businesses can grow, because the more businesses can grow, the better the economy in that country is, and therefore the more money the government stands to make. And they also want to be able to help their people acquire the goods and services that they want, because if they do, then the government looks good to the people, and that also helps the economy, etc. And I think you can see the trend going on there. An important piece of this is known as protectionism. Some countries put this policy in place. The idea is that it's looking to protect their own workers and their own businesses. A lot of times countries will do this for that reason. What does it mean? What does it entail? It means that they put limits on either the number of goods that can come in or be traded, or the type of goods that can be traded or come in, and that's known as quotas. Or things that are imported, meaning things that are brought into the country, they tax them, and that's known as a tariff. And so quotas and tariffs are two ways in which countries use this style of protectionism, again, in order to protect their own workers and their own businesses. Because if it was free and everyone can kind of do their own thing, oftentimes people can be taken advantage of, and businesses might lose out on money if these things are not in place. On the opposite side of this, we have free trade. Companies can trade across different borders internationally without any restrictions, no quotas, no tariffs, no nothing. This helps these countries, or excuse me, these companies make a lot more money, because without any of these limits on what they can trade and how much they can trade or what they can trade, they can make a ton more money. And they have more places where they can sell this, because a lot of times a company isn't going to want to sell to a country that puts protectionistic policies in place, like quotas and tariffs, because it limits the amount of money that they can make, and that can be a hassle for them. And so therefore, a lot of times companies are certainly going to prefer the free trade over the protectionist idea. With free trade, this creates an increase in competition. Different companies selling their products anywhere they want, and so you see different companies, excuse me, that are going to look to sell their product at a lower cost than someone else. And the idea is that these companies are constantly competing to make the most profits by selling at the lowest cost. You sell at the lowest cost, more people are going to buy it, and you make more money. The higher your profits and the lower your cost, the more money you stand to make. Now, how do they do this? Companies are going to often look to manufacture their goods in different countries where wages, meaning pay, taxes, and environmental regulations, like protection for the environment, are much lower. In the US, these kinds of things are much higher. You have to pay people a lot more because of certain laws. There are more taxes, and we care a lot more about the environment than other places in the world. Some see it as a good thing, some see it as a bad thing, but that's just the way that it is in America. In other countries like China, Taiwan, Indonesia, sometimes even India, where there are not as strict with laws on these types of things, you're going to see companies go there because they can spend a lot less money on these things and still be able to then make a big, big profit. The WTO is the World Trade Organization. It's an organization that works similarly to the UN, that looks to create rules and policies for global trade that anyone who's a part of it has to follow. And so anytime that there's a dispute, their job is to resolve it. Meaning if anyone has any sort of issues, their job is to make sure that that issue gets resolved so it doesn't sprout into a bigger issue. Their primary goal is to promote free trade and eliminate protectionism. So they want more companies involved, more money going around, more people involved in this process so everyone can make money. They don't want quotas, they don't want tariffs, because it limits the amount of trade that can be done in the world. Let's talk about technology and how technology has increased as a result of globalization. A lot of different types of technologies are becoming a lot easier to access in a variety of other countries. Information like from BBC and Al Jazeera are coming into other countries, meaning you get to hear about different news stories from other places. Telecommunications, cell phones, Skype, satellite, WhatsApp, all of these different types of apps and cell phone usage and things are growing incredibly all over the world. Transportation and shipping technology like aviation, drones, things like that, these things are growing rapidly as well. And of course, as we know, social media like Facebook, Twitter, etc., are huge in a lot of countries around the world. A multinational corporation, or MNC, is a company that does business in more than one country. If you look here, you can see a variety of these. One question on your sheet asks you to look up the top five MNCs. You can just do a quick Google search of that. It should not be too hard for you to find. Their primary goal, as you might expect, is to make money. How do they increase their profits? They take jobs from one country and they move them to other places where they have lower wages and fewer environmental regulations, as we talked about before. This process is known as outsourcing. If you take them from the US, for example, where you have a lot more restrictions on what you can do, to a place like China, where there aren't as many restrictions, these MNCs can make a ton more money. Now, that's at the expense of the people working there and the environment, etc., that we'll get into in a few days. But this process can help them increase their profits by a lot. And that, again, is known as outsourcing. The opposite process is known as insourcing or reshoring. Either one of those two terms means the same thing, meaning you bring jobs to your country. So if America is looking to bring more jobs to America from overseas, that would be called insourcing. So here's the model that I want you to pay attention to. If you look at how globalization really works, it works in a fashion like this. You look at it in terms of free trade, which is encouraged by the WTO, World Trade Organization, and technological innovation, meaning the advancements in technology, together help bring about more trade and more growth in multinational corporations, or MNCs, which then causes an increased movement in goods, people, ideas, and culture, which is our definition of globalization. And because of these things, it creates a more globalized world where we are more interdependent upon one another. And so these are some of the ideas related to the economic impact that globalization has. Hopefully you've been filling in your notes as you go along. If you have not, pause this video, go back to where you need to fill things in, and we'll be talking a lot more about this in class. Thanks for listening.